I'm right, you're wrong, don't let them. This is your host, Del T. Bobbins. Welcome back. We're going to talk about some more everyday experiences today. And we'll start with a story called Are You Sure? You know, we're never really sure sometimes what's going on in the world until we walk in someone else's shoes or we really know what the circumstance is. So to set it up, it's a story that's been floating around the internet. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it carries a brutal kind of truth. But the gist of it is, there's a man and his wife that lived a kind of a quiet, modest life with their young baby. And when the man was called away to serve in the armed forces for a couple years, the wife found small ways to soothe their child at night. One of them was she had a makeshift shadow puppet of Daddy that was on the bedroom wall in the evening. Her hands were forming a little silhouette that brought comfort to the baby while Dad was away. Years later, the husband returned home late one night, and he looked through the window before walking in. He saw a human-shaped shadow on the bedroom wall beside his wife and their baby. Rage surged through him. Without asking a question, without giving a breath to a single conversation, he assumed the worst, that his wife had been unfaithful. The next morning, he just pulled away from her, cold and silent and distant. His wife, confused, devastated, she was unable to understand what she did wrong. She spiraled under the weight of his sudden rejection. The grief consumed her, and in her despair, she eventually took her own life. After her death, the truth surfaced. The man on the wall had never been a man at all. It had been her hands, making the same shadow puppet she used to comfort their baby. One unquestioned assumption, one snap judgment, one heartbreakingly preventable tragedy, all because he was so sure, and he never actually was. The story is dramatic, yes, but so is the human tendency behind it. We walk around every day convinced we know what we're seeing, convinced we understand someone else's behavior, convinced our interpretation is the truth, but most of the time we're reacting to shadows on a wall. We're consistently interpreting shadows, moments, comments, facial expression, split-second behaviors, and we convince ourselves that we know exactly what they mean. But perspective is a little slippery, isn't it? So walk into any soccer game is a good analogy, and watch what happens when one team scores. The fan on one side erupt with joy, cheering, jumping, hugging. And on the opposite side of the field, the people are slumped in their seats, devastated. The same moment, the same event, but two entirely different emotional realities. Two truths, two interpretations, two sides of the same coin. And yet, when something happens in our lives, we act as though our first interpretation is the only possible one. As though we're the lone keepers of the truth, as though our angle is the whole picture. But usually, we're only seeing one sideline, one vantage point, one shadow. So before you judge the stranger who cuts you off in traffic, are you sure they aren't racing to the hospital for someone they love? Before you assume that your friend is ignoring you, are you sure they aren't drowning quietly in something they don't know how to talk about? Before you decide your partner's mood is about you, are you sure it's not exhaustion, fear, or a battle you've never seen? Before you interpret a single line of a text as evidence of attitude, disrespect, or disinterest, are you sure it's not simply the bluntness of digital communication? Our minds fill in the gaps with whatever story feels most familiar to us, what's not necessarily true. We don't see reality. We see our fears, insecurities, and past experience projected onto the wall like a shadow puppet. And once we decide we're right, we stop being curious. We stop asking questions. We stop listening. We react to our own interpretation instead of the actual situation. So this is a reminder of the simplest, hardest discipline of adulthood. Slow down and check the story you're telling yourself. You might be wrong. You might be projecting. You might be hurting someone you love or yourself because you trusted a shadow instead of seeking the truth. Ask before you assume. Clarify before you react. Look again before you walk away. And always remember to pause long enough to ask yourself, am I sure? Little lighter topic of music and the soul. They say music soothes the wild beast. It reaches parts of us that logic and language and reason simply cannot. Those tucked away chambers of memory, emotion, longing, and joy. You can see someone's soul in their eyes, and often you can hear it in the music that resonates with them. It was an honor when the 5 and 10s band out of Toronto graciously gave me permission to use their song, Do What You Do, as the introduction for this podcast. The 5 and 10s, by the way, is a 4-piece jazz combo from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, a soulful, psychedelic, and groove-driven band. They blend warm jazz and textures with elements of funk and laid-back rhythm that feels like sunshine. Hearing their sound immediately took me to a place of calm, curiosity, and joy, which is exactly the vibe I wanted to set for conversations on this podcast. Thanks again, guys. That's the power of music. It mirrors something deep inside of us. Our tastes are like fingerprints made of sound. Some of the music that moves me is dark and introspective at times, like heavy emotional weight, like you'd find tracks such as In Bloodstream by Stateless, whose lyrics, steeped in melancholy and depth, feel like an honest dive into the stormy parts of the soul. Then songs can make me laugh, smile, or move, like Garden of Veggies by the Fantasy Guys. It's a playful song with whimsical, irreverent energy that feels like a carefree moment in the sunshine. And then there's something entirely different, like a favorite group of mine, Duran Jones and the Indications, an American soul group rooted in retro soul and contemporary R&B with blends of gospel and warmth, gritty emotion, and timeless harmonic beauty. So that reminds me of a Japanese doctor, Masaru Emoto, if I'm saying that right. You've probably seen his book on water experiments. If not, there's a short YouTube video. You can get the gist of it. But his experiments with water provide a striking visual of this same truth with sounds and music and resonance. He found out that when water is exposed to calm, uplifting music or kind, loving intentions, and then frozen, the resulting crystals are intricate, symmetrical, and breathtakingly beautiful. But when the water is exposed to harsh, discordant sounds or negative thoughts, the crystals form jagged, chaotic shape, almost as if the water itself were reflecting the turmoil that it was absorbing. Emoto's work reminds us that music, words, and intentions carry energy that can shape even the most fundamental elements in our life. When we bless, honor, or simply offer calmness to the world around us, even something as simple as water, it responds. The harmony we cultivate is mirrored back to us, and in a way, listening to music becomes a practice of alignment with love, clarity, and beauty, and we hope to manifest that in our own lives. These diverse tastes reflect the mosaic of life itself. Music isn't just background noise, it's a mirror to our inner world. The artists we love, the rhythms that make our heart speed up or slow down, the lyrics that feel like someone understands us, all of those musical choices are reflection and pieces of our lives. They tell stories that words alone sometimes can't. Different tastes don't mean better or worse, they mean unique experiences. The same song makes one person teary, another person nostalgic, another person might just want to dance. That's the beauty of us. Each of us is walking through life with a soundtrack that captures some part of who we are. But music connects us, and through it we find glimpses of our souls in each other. So listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart, because in music we can find echoes of ourselves, and in those echoes we can find connection with others, comfort, and community. God bless you. See you in the next episode.